This is a 14mm prime, and if I had to pick one focal length for the rest of my life, it would be this one. Now, even though I shoot anywhere between 24 and up to 200mm, the 40mm feels right. You know, it's a bit like if you have that one pair of trainers that when you put your feet in, it just fits 100%, you can do 100,000 steps in it, and it's that one pair of trainers you don't want to get rid of because you've never had a pair of trainers that fit you that well. Well, that's what the 40mm is like to me. Now, I truly believe that as a photographer, having one focal length that is your go-to is important. Having this focal length that you know it inside out, you can compose without even looking for the viewfinder. And it's the one that if you need to get results, you can slap it on and you know exactly what to do with it. Now, for some people that's 28, for some it's 35, 50, or even 135. This is not to take away from people who like to use zooms. I use zooms a lot, and people who enjoy using a varied selection of different focal lengths. I just think that having that one that fits you like a glove is extremely important. So you might be wondering, well, what are the benefits of having that one go-to focal length when I have a zoom, for instance? And the biggest benefit is the compounding of experience when it comes to seeing the world through a particular focal length. When you get good at one focal length, you can see the world through that lens without physically having to put your eye up to the viewfinder. You automatically know that where you're standing, you can get that composition or you can get that shot. And if you see that subject over there, you know straight away whether you're too close or too far away. You feel comfortable being able to put that lens into various corners and shoot through things and really get the most out of it. And by having that skill which compounds over time, you end up in a position that with this one focal length, no matter where you are in the world or what the situation is, what the scenario is, you can walk away with good photos. Now, for some of you watching this, you might already have your own go-to focal length. However, there might be some people who don't. And the natural question to follow up this advice would be, well, I don't know what my go-to focal length is. How do I find it out? Well, again, I can't give you exact, okay, you need to be at 35 or 85 or whatever, because I don't know you personally, but there are kind of two ways to go about it. The first way is if you already use a zoom, and that's just to load up all your photos in Lightroom, Capture One, whatever, and see if you can sort them by the focal length. So for instance, if I shoot on a zoom, I can guarantee you that most of my photos will be somewhere between 35 and 50mm. Many of them will be at 70, but that kind of 35, 50, 60, that kind of range is where my images will sit. For you, it might be around the 28 to 35 mark, and that will give you an initial idea into which direction to look at. If you don't have a zoom or you don't like using zooms, then I would split focal lengths into three distinct categories. And each category will depend on your personality, your comfort level with being in close proximity to your subjects, what you like to shoot, and ultimately what you want the viewer of your images to feel and to see. Let's first look at wide angle lenses, and for this I'm looking at around 24 to 35mm. These lenses are for people who want to be in the center of the action. If you're walking down a busy market street, you want to be right in the middle, shoulder to shoulder with other people, and really delving deep into that environment. From a viewer's perspective, your viewer will effectively be standing next to you and seeing what you're seeing. It's the best POV type of viewing experience, and it's for people who want to get the most raw emotion, the most immersive image, and to really make the viewer feel something through that image. You have a lot of elements, you have a lot of layers, you have to think about a lot of things, and for many people initially these focal lengths might be difficult because you have to fill them, and the more space you have to fill, the more difficult it can be because there's more chaos to try and navigate as well. If that's what you want, I would say start at around 28mm, because 24 is very wide, and in my opinion you can start to see a little bit of distortion around the extreme edges, whereas with 28 it's still incredibly wide. You just don't get that distortion. Now you can go towards 35mm, and that is where you want your scene to be a little bit more tidy, if you still want that wide angle immersive feel, but perhaps not so wide, and perhaps you don't want to be that close to people. Start with 28, you can always crop to 35, and I suspect you would really enjoy that focal length, because if that's the look and the feeling you're going for, you probably won't get it with tighter lenses. Now let's look at the middle, which is anywhere between 40 and 50mm, maybe a little bit more. And this is for people who want to document subjects, to focus on subjects, but they don't want to be right in the middle of the action. They still want to be close enough to capture that mood, that emotion, and the feeling of being in a particular location, but without having to get really close to people or subjects, or just really get in people's faces. This particular focal length is probably the most comfortable for most beginners, because it allows you to get close without it being uncomfortably close. I personally love 40mm because I love taking photos of scenes, whereas maybe 2 years ago I was drawn more to the 50mm because I preferred subjects. And if you're not sure whether to go for 40 or 50, I would say 40mm is for scenes, 50mm is more for subjects. Now obviously with a 50 you can take a few steps back and get the whole scene, with a 40 take a few steps forward and get the subject. But as a general kind of, to give you a general idea, that would be my decision-making process. And the final group of lenses is the tighter lenses, where you're now kind of going into the telephoto territory. Typically that would start around 60mm and can go up to 100 or plus if you want. I would say a good average there is, let's say, an 85mm prime, and that will now remove you from the scene. In the same way, will remove the viewer from the scene, and this lens will make you a fly on the wall, and it will make you a distant observer. So I would go for these focal lengths if, let's say for instance, you live somewhere or you shoot somewhere that's extremely open and you need to have tighter lenses in order to just, I don't know, reach across the street or whatever. But primarily is if you like simpler compositions, if you have a more aesthetic driven approach, you like to create a bit more abstract type of stuff, and you don't want to bruise the scene, you don't want to be in the middle of it. Perhaps you're introverted, you don't want to be dealing with people, you don't want people to know you're there because you don't want to kind of impact that scene, and you effectively just want to be a fly on the wall and observe. The longer lenses are actually very good for that. There is an argument that these longer lenses, they can be a bit kind of creepy. They can also be soulless because you're removing that kind of soul and that raw emotion from the image. I can see that argument, if I'm honest, and certainly if I want the most immersive raw image, I wouldn't shoot at 85mm, but that style is not for everyone, and if you feel uncomfortable shooting at wider lenses, then I would suggest start with a tighter lens, and as you progress in photography you might find that you go a little bit wider. When I first started photography, I was exclusively shooting between 50 and 70mm because I was comfortable with that distance. Whereas now I'm kind of 40mm, 35 to 50. I'll still go telephoto if I need to, but I'll no longer resort to it for all of my photography. So why have I picked 40mm for myself? So as I've mentioned already in the video, when I first started out, I was shooting at 50 and I was more subject driven. If you go back through my work to maybe 22, 23, there were a lot more subjects, whereas today I tend to go for more scenes and just pretty pictures as opposed to interesting subjects in the street. And 50 for that was a little bit too tight. Now I've gone for a phase of mostly shooting at 35mm, but I found myself cropping very often, but cropping only a little bit. So 40mm was just a very nice kind of middle ground that I happened to fall into. Don't get me wrong, if I'm going out with the sole a desire to just document a day out with friends, family, whatever, I would still go for a 28 or a 35mm prime. So even though I've got this little 40mm, I've also got the 24mm version of it, and I would use that if I am, let's say, just out and I want to document a day for personal memories. I can always punch into 35 if I want to. And over time, for me, 40 just felt right. But as I've said, focal lengths are incredibly personal. And for you, you might just want to stick with one zoom and not specialize in any focal length, which is fine. But I would still highly recommend at least getting comfortable with one particular focal length, or at least a little range, maybe 24 to 35, or maybe it's 40 to 60, something in those lines. Okay, that's all I really wanted to say in this video. It's very short and sweet. This subject doesn't need to be drawn out any more than needed. If you want to learn more about my photography process, then please check out my little photography book. It's a 300+ page book that I've compiled, I've written over the last few years. And it's basically everything that's in my head, but in on a PDF, in written form. And as I learn more, I update that book, and for you, if you've purchased it, it's free updates. So I've already got a long list of extra chapters that I'm writing for the book, and if you buy it today, or you buy it tomorrow, or you've bought it, I don't know, a year ago, you will get those updates as and when. And that is, like I say, the most direct way to support this channel, to support my work, if you get any value from it. That's it. Thank you so much for watching, and I shall speak to you in the next video. Have a good day. Bye-bye. Oh, can't reach.